Guys, welcome back to our channel. Lindsay and Ben here, the Rooted Rainbow. Welcome. So we have some conversation for you on things and pride and faithfulness, and Ben, kick us off.
So, reading and studying this morning and this afternoon, I read and thought about pride. And one thing that stuck out that my mom would tell me back in the day growing up, and sometimes I would listen to her, but the one thing that always stuck was, you ever have a dream or a vision with a vehicle, a car, a boat, plane? Usually it represents destiny. And today I was driving around kind of frantically trying to avoid things I needed to get done today, which is to work on my resume. And I was driving around just like, I just wanted to buy something, get something for me. And at one point I was like, why don't you get something for Lindsay?
Oh.
And I was like, but I know where a skateboard is for sale right now. And I was kind of like, just like, get out of my way, people, and driving so slow, Grandpa, and I just knew that that's not how I normally drive. How do I usually drive?
Like an old man.
That's right. Like a good defensive old man. And I just drive like that. It's safe. I know that I'm going to get to the place I want to go to at the same speed. But I was driving like a punk, and because of my disobedience, I was driving somewhat prideful. And so how you drive is a good indicator of the way you're walking through your destiny.
Ouch. Bam.
And the Lord has used that over and over again with me and with other people. And you might want to remember that one. It worked for me. I got that one from my mama. So remember that one. Another thing that kind of butts itself up with pride is just, not being able to be disciplined. And it really comes to kind of like lawlessness. Pride and lawlessness. I'm pretty sure anyone can look at those two and see how they go hand in hand with one another. Whether you think you're above the law, or the law doesn't apply to you, or you just make your own law. And the problem with that is there's laws out there that will trump your law. And that is not a political word I used. I just meant trump, meaning it'll overdo you, it'll whatever. I'm not talking about the president. And so
it'll build a wall on top of you.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, I used to be harsh against, our system. I'm not an anarchist or anything by any means, but we all know that there's things that we could work on, like our prison system, right? Mass incarceration might not be the best way to discipline lawlessness in some way, and sometimes it's okay going to prison. But the judicial system works. I mean, it's kind of what kept us out of. It's what helped child labor laws. It's why when you and I were like 13, we didn't get chopped up in a meat factory, and oh well, there goes Ben and Lindsay, right?
Let's bring it back to this.
Yeah. Okay. So I was thinking of pride and lawlessness and the inability to be disciplined or receive correction. I probably should have got a ticket today, but I didn't. And so I was reading through the story of King Uzziah in 2 Chronicles 26.
Yes.
And he had a good life. He was doing good. He became king at 15. He did all these awesome works and built up the wall, took back some territory. And
he's doing a good little job for himself.
He was working in the sciences, and it said that he loved growing things, that he was really good with the soil and farming, and he loved the land, obviously. And so, and then all of a sudden, it just changes. The story changes, and it says that in the middle of his accomplishments, he became he became prideful
and unfaithful.
and unfaithful. And but it doesn't say why. What were those? What caused that? And so I'm asking you, why do you think they use the word unfaithful?
I think unfaithful just represents a change in course, because if you were once faithful and then something has changed that course, something has changed that trajectory, it has taken you from faithful to unfaithful. So, as in the beginning of the story, his works represent, faith and, um, and he loved God and he sought God. It says during those days, but something changed that turned him from that place of faith to being unfaithful.
You know, at one point I think it was the prophet Zechariah, or it was a big player in the game back in the day, prophet, or he was a high priest or something. And when he was younger, that he sought out his discipline, and that man of God disciplined him in the ways of the Lord. But when he becomes prideful and unfaithful, he enters into the temple and tries to burn incense on his own. And it says that 81 priests, including, I believe it was the high priest at the time, who would wear the big stone plate on his chest, and he was the only one allowed to go into the Holy of Holies. But 80, it says courageous, 80 courageous men, including the high priest dude, go and try to stop the king. And one reason that's courageous is because it's a known fact that if you didn't do things properly according to the law that they had back in the day for entering into the temple, you could drop dead by the power of God. Boom, like you're done. There were people that touched the Ark of the Covenant, they dropped. They're done. Too much power. And it's kind of like if you grab onto a light pole with 15,000 currents going through it, you're dropping. And you can't get mad at the power lines. It's just the way it is. And so they were courageous because, one, they were going up against the king, and they were going into the temple to stop him. And it's 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 this anger that you see in the king, where he's just like, get out of my way, and he starts yelling at these priests, and all they're trying to do is look out for him. And around that time, boom, they see leprosy, it says on his forehead, starts to break out. And obviously that's supernatural. How that's happening, I don't know. Why? Because he's trying to do something that he's not supposed to be doing. Disobedience and lawlessness and pride. And that was something only the priest could do. He was not supposed to be lighting incense on the incense, what do they call that?
Altar.
The altar of incense. And he's going up there and he wants to do it himself. And it's like, why? Why do that?
So, an important part of the story is the fact that at the end, he's buried in a grave, and it's just like a field by like where the kings were, and just on his gravestone it just said he had leprosy. So that was, his whole life he had done all these great things. The trajectory of his path changed, and he became unfaithful, gets leprosy, and then dies. And then that's all that's left to show his life's work is that. So what do you think is kind of attributed to that change in direction, that change in unfaithfulness, or that change from faithfulness to unfaithfulness?
Well, I think his pride, his accomplishments led him to pride. And I think obviously there were some things that he wanted or needed from the Lord. He wasn't getting them the way he wanted them, so he took it into his own power to do so. He was just like we do. He received correction, but wouldn't take it from manly God or godly men,
Manly God.
manly God, from godly men around them, and it came out through anger. He was just like, "Get away from me." And I know that I'll do that even when you try to correct me or something gentle that, just like, "What do you want for dinner?" And I'm like, "I don't know, bye."
Boo.
And like, it's just anger and pride and, you know, and, if you're struggling with pride, check yourself, am I angry all the time? Well, maybe dealing with pride, or, are you prideful all the time? Maybe you're dealing with anger.
That's like a whole nother thing. Is like, well, the reduction of pride is humility, right? So, but
Right.
then how do you teach humility? It's like you can't really. It's really. I don't even know how to answer that.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, there's no such thing as darkness, just the absence of light. Pride is just the absence of humility.
Mm-hmm.
And,
That's good.
um, you know, it's, he had an absence of, correction around him.
Mm-hmm.
And even when it was around him, probably circling around him, he still didn't want it. And it came out through anger. And, you know, it's really a story, in my opinion, to, to show people, if you're dealing with these things, if you're being disobedient and you're seeing yourself angry all the time and you don't want to admit the problem, that's pride. And your faith is wavering. You're like, "Come on, God, where are you? What's going on?" You're taking things into your own hand. And that's when it gets really dangerous. That's when we really see, King Uzziah really trip up. Is when he just takes it in his own hand. He takes that incense into his own hand. He's ready to throw it up on there, and that's where you see him get beat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we usually get beat. That's where we usually have our major losses in life, is when we take things into our own hand.
Mm-hmm.
They were 80 something priests that could have done that incense for him, that could have given that prayer. There's a reason why he went and got the incense. I think he had a question. He wanted to pray to God, and he did it the wrong way, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
And 80 dudes to help him, and he didn't use any of that help. That's pride.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use people's help. And it's in.
But he had the right idea in a way of trying to go, towards the Lord. He just went about it the wrong way. And I think that's a good example of, there are checks and balances in the world that are kind of set up for the world that we live in, that God's put here for us to be able to function better. The fact that, you can go to a church and surround yourself with other Christians and, find people who are like you. That's like the biggest benefit of, being a part of a church is, all right, not everyone's going to be the same as you, but you're going to find other people who are like you in this way.
Sure.
And so it's like, you need some help or some support. It's just like, just go find a church and just go and put yourself there. And then you're going to be surrounded, and now all you have to do is just open up your mind and open up your ears to be able to listen and not to go throwing incense all over the place, like trying to do it your own way, So I think that's good. I think looking at ourselves throughout our lives to keep our momentum going forward, and keep our faithfulness steady. Those are two hard things to do in the long run, to keep that, to keep that consistent through our lives, because so many things can kind of come and go, circumstantial things. And when we're able to, hone in on those, it's powerful, because then you have a long run where at the end of the day you can say, hey, God can be like, good job, good and faithful servant, versus he had leprosy.
No. And even when it says that, he died, his son became king, and his son did a good job. And it says in the scripture, his son did good in the eyes of the Lord, but he did not go into the temple. It just like right at the bat, it says, but he didn't do what his dad did. And it's like, man, so I guess my question for me and for you and for any viewers we have here is, what are you seeking? The next question would be, have you had anyone pray for you? And if you haven't, and you haven't found what you're seeking, why don't you find someone to pray for you?
Mhm.
And that might settle your heart. I know when I ask that question, it makes my heart feel good. And I believe there's people out there that are missing that. What are you seeking? Some of you have even found God already. So you're not seeking God. You've already found God. God's found you. You've already built a relationship up. He's asking you to do something, and he's actually seeking you out. He's seeking out your obedience.
Mhm.
And you've got it backwards. So be obedient. Have people pray for you. That's just common sense, really. If you're a Christian, if you're a believer, even if you're not a believer, have someone pray for you. What's the worst thing that can happen? Your prayer gets answered.
Oh, snap.
Your need gets answered. You see a miracle. You find God. God finds you. However you want to say it. And that's my question. What are you seeking?
So, guys, we're going to leave it at that. What are you seeking? We'll check in with you next time with a new video. And until then,
Cheers.
see you later. Cheers.